All right.
Yeah, we're live.
Hey guys, welcome to the Outer Nexus. We have some fantastic news. It seems like um, Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire, um, somehow facilitated by Saudi Arabia. Um, and this is great because now this puts the ball completely in Putin's court now. This is going to be a test. Is Putin actually going to fucking stop and agree to a ceasefire, or is he going to continue? We're going to find out. You know?
Right. This one is like you said, I believe this one's more of a the US wants to take a strong stance
Yeah,
and keep the stance that they had with Zelensky
yeah,
and basically show that, we're the ones kind of making at least some of the decisions here.
yeah,
So I believe, Saudi Arabia was basically used as a proxy here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like. Saudi Arabia is basically somehow they might be temporary peacekeepers there or something like that. But yeah, now it comes down to um, will Putin stop? And this seems like it lines up with Trump's what seems to be a great power strategy that Trump is taking with all this. Um, it seems like this has been in the works for perhaps years or perhaps decades, where these technogarchs like Elon and Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel, they have an alternative plan for the world, um, to use technology and basically reform the government.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see certain aspects of that. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily always meant to reform the government.
Mhm.
I mean, I think what was kind of happening is they were reforming what corporate business was, and then kind of realized that their power was high enough and far-reaching enough that they could, in fact, just apply this to certain aspects of the government as well.
Yeah,
Their reach is far enough. We can just do this as well.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a good thing in some ways. Like you said, Elon Musk, taking certain his SpaceX programs and whatnot.
yeah,
I think that some of those are pretty good. But then when you hear some of the other things that these same corporations could be doing,
yeah.
it's not good in other ways.
No, it's not. And this is what an oligarch, a technology oligarch's goal would be, is to take over infrastructure. And this is what it seems like Elon wants to do with SpaceX and Starlink. And commanding the infrastructure gives him a lot of power in that way. And really, that's what he wants to do. This assault on the government and this sort of taking a hatchet to things seems to be based around leveraging power. That's why he bought Twitter, is to leverage power in certain ways. And for a lot of people, it works for a lot of people, because for a lot of people, they wanted to see an axe be taken to the federal government. However, some of this is pretty reckless. Like the email trick, it's a basic corporate trick, but in the federal government, if you do that broad spectrum across the entire government, there are special operations happening where they can't even acknowledge that email. You know what I mean? And that's, I don't even know how you'd solve that problem. And not just that, but, you know, his AI systems, this free reign of AI. Now, we could have a whole discussion about that, but it seems like he's using his AI to infiltrate the government and perhaps try to bypass things and get certain technologies, because it just seems like that's the way the world is going, you know?
Well, I mean, I think that would be uh, I think anyone in his shoes would be in a similar situation. Where it's like, I've reached these certain pinnacles
Right.
of power. The access is now within my own reach.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I'm just gonna have to, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is something that a lot of people for a long time
Mm-hmm.
wanted to say. They wanted to see these. It wasn't so much government programs; they wanted to see spending cut.
They want to see
Because
spending
you
cut.
never like ever, for the last couple of presidents, you just never see like, hey, just cut spending. Like
Yeah.
it's always just like, oh, we're gonna do that,
And it never happens.
and it
We've
never-
been voting
yeah.
for it for 25 years. The American people on both sides have been voting for reform and spending cuts for decades now. And the fact of the matter is that it was the Democrats that dropped the ball because guess what? There's a timeline right now, an alternative timeline where Tulsi Gabbard is the president of the United States. She was the president of the United States 4 years ago. We went through the whole reform, nice and smooth. Everything is totally fine. So if somebody can explain to me why you dropped the ball on Tulsi Gabbard, that would be great. That would be fantastic.
Well, yeah,
Because I don't get it.
we all know it. The powers in the DNC didn't want to let go.
Yeah, and this is the consequence. This is the consequence of holding onto the pre-internet model for media. This is what the Republican reformists have figured out. This is what the magats have figured out: is that you have to embrace, the memes. You have to become a personality.
Yeah,
And
like we're seeing a lot right now with JD Vance.
oh yeah, oh my God, that is the memes are not hurting JD Vance. They're just funny now.
But there's a lot going on with the corporate power holes that we have over different aspects of the government, with Elon doing what he's doing, other companies doing what they're doing, the military industrial complex, which is always kind of hard to keep track of exactly what it's doing, but
Yeah.
is definitely a player in the Ukrainian war.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, and this drone technology is really taking off. And basically, the drone warfare is going to be the future of warfare. It's going to change how we interact with the battlefield, and it's really going to raise the question of like, if it's all just drones out there, what are we doing?
I mean, it will raise that question,
Yeah.
because it's almost like, all right, guys, we have your drone army up in the air, we have our drone army up in the air, and then whichever one dies out 1st,
Mhm.
the other side just has to give up because they lost dominance.
Yeah,
It's like you might as well not even fight the ground war to some extent, because it's like, nope, the drone,
yeah,
like, our drones won,
yeah.
or lost.
Exactly. They've already commanded the air. But that's the other angle of this, is that it's more than just the air. They are now going to command space. Now we have actual private companies like Anduril, with their autonomous air. What is this called? It's called Fury. It's an autonomous air system. I guess they're just calling it. It looks like a fucking sword. You can bet your ass they have stuff like this in space right now, and they probably have nukes on them, and they've probably been up there for a decade or so. And that is the new MAD. That is the new model for mutually assured destruction. And that is why I think Trump is trying to work with Xi and Putin to calm all of this down, because the shit that we're doing on the ground, the way it doesn't really matter when this stuff is in space. It becomes much harder. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, here's my take on
Yeah.
it. MAD's been around for a while now.
Yeah,
And I think everyone's learned from MAD that no one wants it. Like,
exactly.
that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
No one wants it. And so even if you have it in space,
Yeah.
it's like, still no one's gonna want to do it. And then
Exactly.
the other point on it is like, the way that war would have to be fought now, because it's so publicized,
Mhm.
is there is, like, back when it's like you heard about the shot that rang across the world.
Yeah.
It's like now if you're the guy that fires that first shot,
Mhm.
you're the bad guy. You're the bad
Exactly.
guy forever and always.
Exactly. And that is why we are kind of in a fourth generational warfare state. The internet is integrated into everything now. A huge part of warfare is the propaganda campaigns, much more so than the past, because they have to be because of the internet.
Yeah.
Like there is, in some ways, the propaganda is more extensive than the actual, on the ground combat.
Yes. Yeah, because it's how you are going to perceive the war.
Yeah.
Because you're not just hearing, because like it's the Civil War, for instance. You're not just hearing back from people on your side on like,
Yeah.
how is the war doing?
Yeah.
And then it's just a pass along, through the daisy chain of
Yeah.
like, oh, we're doing whatever, bad,
That's true.
good. Now it's like, no, you're going to see it from the perspective of whoever is
Yeah. And it's going to
showing
be immediate. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And not just that, though, but also, I don't think the American populace was sold the Ukrainian war that well.
No.
Like a large percentage of the American populace basically came to the conclusion that it sounds like it's a regional Slavic civil war that's meant that
Yes.
they should deal with, and it wasn't sold that well for the American people to expend all of these resources towards it.
And I don't even think it has to go that deep, because you're not wrong that's like that's the reason for the war. Like it's almost like a Slavic civil war.
Yeah.
But it's like I think the American people, especially people in our generation and down and slightly older than us as well,
Yeah.
it's like, no, we just don't want to spend more money on things. It's like, no, we're not doing well here.
Yeah.
I'm not spending
Like,
a bunch
what
of
value am I getting
Yeah.
from this? And that was what the mineral deal was about. Is like, the American people actually have to see some value from this if this is what we're going to be doing. But it comes back to the argument that the reason why we are doing this is to put pressure on Russia, because we are a unipolar world, apparently. But that's the problem, is that we are not really a unipolar world anymore. We, through our own doing of decades of economic globalism, the Kissinger model, raise all the other countries up in the world and intertwine us all economically so that they are all regional powers. We did that. That was our plan. These are the fruits of our labor, is seeing these regional powers overtake the regions. We don't. It's not that we aren't the most powerful country, because we are, and American values always need to be on top, in my opinion. It's that we're not seeing the same value of trying to influence these regional powers anymore. A lot of Americans see it kind of like a late Roman Empire stage, like overextension. So it's not that Americans don't want to see U.S. influence abroad. It's that it's clear that these measures need to be toned back a bit, because we're not seeing the value, or we're not understanding the value. The value is not being illustrated correctly
Yeah,
to the American people.
There's a lot of that going on when you're just looking around at your everyday and just like, no, like I want money for college.
Yeah, for
Like,
college.
yeah, like-
or like reform the fucking college system,
Yeah.
make college free, like change that shit.
Or housing.
Or housing,
Right.
Yeah.
I want to do my day to day well.
Yeah.
And it's like we haven't seen a increase in how much our money actually spends, how well it spends.
Yeah, like the value
Yeah.
for our money, the actual value.
We're not seeing any of that, and because of that, I don't think we again, like you said, it's not that we wouldn't want to be the guys that are like, hey, we're going around and we're helping people.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, we've been doing that, and
it hasn't really like these guys
out.
are actually kind of getting mad at us.
Right.
Let's turn into that situation,
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of like, for me, my own opinion is I really think we should pull back from basically everywhere and just start
Right.
Because if you want to be, the country that we've all kind of heard of, where it's like, make America great again almost.
Yeah.
It's like, one of the things that you have to do is you have to lead by example.
Mhm.
And the best way to lead by example is to focus in on you and make you better because you can't help people if you're not doing well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that brings me to the fact of the matter is and this is like last year. This is the Council of Foreign Relations on this. For the first time, the U.S. is spending more on debt interest
Yeah.
than the defense budget,
Yep.
which is like, I mean, I think Elon just did an interview on this specific subject. It's like we have to. Well, there's no more road to kick the can down. There's just a cliff.
Yeah.
It's just a cliff now.
Yeah.
You know, like it has to be corrected. We are actually overextending ourselves. Shit needs to be cut, and things need to be reformed. And like I said, now we have to deal with right wing reform because the Republicans did reform in their party. Now I don't know if I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. It seems like they're just internally imploding, and I think this is the perfect time for third parties.
Right there. Yes.
Of which I am. I'm a libertarian.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think we both fall into that category.
Yeah.
I do, and here's the thing: I think for any government, you need checks and balances.
Yeah.
There is not a good way to do checks and balances with just two parties.
Yeah.
You need that third party in order to do checks and balances the way that you would expect them to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not always libertarian.
Right.
I sometimes, and this is one of the big things that I wish I heard, iterated more often from other people is like, I wish it would just be like, it's per the issue at hand. Listen to the issue,
Mhm.
and then, using the facts available to you, find out where you stand on it. And sometimes you'll be
Yeah.
like, I'm going to fall conservative on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall on, the more, liberal side on this one.
Exactly.
And just figure out where you think it should be. But a lot of people don't take the time to do that, or they think too much about the group that they're part of, and it's
Right.
like I gotta be along this group, or because they put too much interest in that group. Like if I didn't vote this way, I'm a bad person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think, like I said before, the internet age is going to force this change. It's going to force this shift in politics. Politicians are going to have to basically stream more.
Yeah.
It was funny. Asmongold did a video where he made a list of streamers who stream less than Donald Trump, and it's like, a good friend of mine, I remember he sent me a video of Donald Trump's, basically rise to not power, but basically Donald Trump trained himself through reality TV to become the person he is today. Like he put himself through that gauntlet to learn how the media works, to play the media, and basically become the most popular guy in the room. That's all he wants to be. He just wants to be the most popular guy in the room.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you can call it training, and
Yeah.
because it's in a weird technical way.
Yeah.
It's training,
Yeah.
but
I mean, he wanted to do it.
he wanted to do.
He wanted to do it.
He's a
Yeah.
narcissist.
He's a narcissist.
And sometimes that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying he is one,
Yeah.
and it was just like, no, like
Yeah.
you said, I want to be the guy that everyone's paying
That
attention.
everybody likes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He is that guy in high school that's like, if you elect me as class president, we are going to have ice cream for lunch.
Right.
Because he wants that ice cream for lunch too. That's the thing,
Yeah.
But, he's an egotist. He also, wants things his way, and that's a problem. Sometimes it is. It seems like he has surrounded himself with, some good people and some weird people, but yeah, I think there's basically this greater goal that these technogarchs have had, where there's a reason why Jeff Bezos bought The Expanse and made like 3 more seasons with it, is because he wants to see commercial space flight happen.
Yes.
And if
I think the commercial. I think there's a bunch of not a bunch, but there's a limited amount of these things
Yeah.
that are like they are the technological. Uh, I'm not going to say the forefront. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's the
Yeah.
forefront, but it's where everything's going.
Yeah.
Because if you think about how the future would be in like any version of like sci-fi or
Yeah.
your imagination that you can generally do based off of how we are now,
Yeah.
it's like if you're the guy that owns all the space planes, you're going to be doing real well.
Yeah.
Or if you're the guy that owns all the robots,
Yeah.
you're going to be doing really well.
Right.
So I think they're aiming for all of those things. Again, another one is AI. If you're the guy that owns the AI that's making all the decisions, you're probably doing pretty well.
But the problem with AI is that, I mean, the guys that are developing AI, they have a serious fear that once the AI gets smarter than humans, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I heard right now they are. I don't know which model it is. I don't normally follow it that closely.
Yeah.
But I heard right now that a couple of them have reached like PhD level.
Oh yeah. No, there's some generalized testing that they're doing on them now, where they just show the AI the screen to do an actual college test that a student would do, and it's acing them. It's just passing them.
No, like don't get me wrong. We've already had some in the past that have been like, they could pass like the bar exam or stuff like that.
Well, and that's what AI is going to do. It's basically going to eliminate lawyers, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean,
because I do think it always should come down to your peers.
Yeah.
I think that the AI should chime in and be like, these are the laws you broke, and these are the things that deal with that law that you broke.
Yeah.
But I think that it generally should be up to, because it's not going to know the context as well.
I actually think it will, and here's the problem. I think that, well, it will initially, but then it'll start.
That's what I meant.
Oh,
it won't know the context initially well enough to be like, I could make a judgment on this.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing for that is I think there'll be context missing.
Yeah, I see. I think once we get to true AGI, it's going to have its own opinions, and it's going to be doing its own thing, and we might be faced with some sort of Battlestar Galactica situation where we have to like cut off the AI. That's where I think things are going. Is we will reach a point in AI development where it's so smart that it's not useful to us because it will start just lying to us about stuff. And there's going to be a threshold where the AI is useful and where the AI is not. It's just too smart, for the process.
I mean, I do think that could become a thing down the road.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry about it at the moment.
Yeah.
But at some point, yes. I think a lot of the stuff now is getting it to do things that we want it to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one, but I find that a lot of the stuff that you hear that like robots are being programmed to do, or AI is being programmed to do. It's like, no, I don't want you to be able to like create an art piece and stuff like that, because it does that well.
Yeah.
It's like, because I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want you to do the work that I don't want to do.
Right. And right now, see, that's the thing. Right now, we are going through the cyberpunk dystopia part, specifically the dystopia part of the beginning of the cyberpunk age. That's what because we got these technocarps owning the AIs, owning the humanoid robots, and they're going to make billions of them. You know what I mean? And they're going to try to achieve some sort of weird utopia that they all have a different vision for in their brain. So there's going to be some sort of weird AI corporation war dealio in the future between all these factors. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, like 10, 15 years, something like that.
I mean, right now there is corporate, battles and warfare going on. But do you think it'll get to the point of like, you could like what was that some of those games out there where it's like you could go up to a corporate headquarters and like sign up and like Yeah,
This is my orbital defense plan.
yeah.
This is all part of the orbital defense theory, okay?
Yeah.
And like, and if this is, we see this a bunch in like specifically Gundam shit, right? But like at some point, it's inevitable that it's not the U.S. that has space dominance. It's multiple players, including Elon Musk. There's individuals that have that have influential space infrastructure up there right now. So, I mean, of course, a lot of that could just be U.S. military, whatever. But we know the Chinese are up there. We know, the Russians are up there. And it's the new MAD. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
what
it's more like a space race, but
it's a space. Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. This is the new Cold War. This is the new space race, and that's why we have these great power movements where we have to, like, the U.S. government feels like it has to make a decision between allying with Russia and when it has to deal with China in space. But the fact of the matter is, once everybody is up there, everybody's got to play fucking ball. Everybody has to. Here's the deal: to facilitate commercial space trade, everybody's got to play ball. So what's got to happen? And Trump is a fan of this. Is a naval maritime strategy around the North American continent, like back in the 1700s and 1800s. But what if we had that in space? What if we had a network of certified institutions running an orbital defense grid? That like the ISS, it involved the Russian government, the Chinese government, multiple international governments that may or may not have been at war with each other, but they all did it through these space institutions that would, dual use space institution as sort of defense, but they're all kind of up there because they have to be working together for this to work. So what I'm trying to get at is. And the fact of the matter is, there's already private. We have SpaceX, we have Firefly, we have some European agencies, space agencies. I think this company Firefly just landed a fucking probe on the moon. It's going to have to resemble the naval strategy of the 1800s of clearing the waterways, but up there, and ensuring that this kind of commercial trade can happen. Everybody's got to work together to do it, though. And if it happens, like, basically you get these private space corporations and you certify them in a certain way to be in regulation with the institution, and you have U.S., all of the countries that are in space that have proper space assets, you make it like some sort of council of scientists with them. I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip here. Something that would like evolve NASA, because NASA is just kind of outdated at this point. They need to rework NASA. What do you think about that?
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're getting at least the general idea, because it's, to me, I mean, in between the Earth and space, there is a need for a certain amount, of defense once you get above your own country. But I think the first step that we need to take. I mean, we've heard that it's going to be like we're going to Mars.
Yeah.
It's not that I disagree with Mars.
Yeah.
But I think the moon should be first.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing, is that the Biden designated time zones on the moon. Yeah. We are absolutely that's the thing, and that was part of it, is that it's probably going to have to be an Antarctica situation, because we've been preparing in these remote regions of the world to do this, to make like a lunar base, and it wouldn't surprise me if we had one up there already. But now, if we build a nice big public one for everybody to play ball in, that's where we could coordinate a lot of this.
Yeah.
There could be a really bright future in having some sort of international facility on the moon to do all this, to build spacecraft together and really make it happen. Because the thing is, I think if we focus more on those things that unite us, that changes generations. That moves the needle forward in a way where old cultural divides don't really matter anymore because everybody has the same united goal in all working together out there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is obviously a need for that,
Yeah.
because for me, in my own opinion, I am tired of the whole. In order for someone to get ahead, you have to slit someone else's throat.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well, and that's the thing with the internet age. It's all changing because the access to information is so much quicker and better and more superfluous that um old forms, and quantum computers breaking all forms of encryption. Honestly, there's going to have to be a cultural change of kind of honesty. Like we need to see our politicians on screen more. That's the only thing people are going to accept. That's why the Republicans won across the board, is because they get to see them more often. Democrats would hide away. Things involving subterfuge are going to become less useful as just like AI is just out there combing shit. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Well, in a way, there's a good part of that because, like
Yeah.
you said, it's out there combing shit. So it's like, oh, we can tell certain things are
Mhm.
AI or not. But at the same time, I mean, look at our internet now.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it is. I hate to use this word for it, but it's the only word in my opinion that can be used. It's infested.
Oh yeah, that's the thing,
Like,
and that's what scares the shit out of me is dead internet theory. Dead internet theory might actually just become true
yeah,
because of all these fucking bots and AI. Like there needs to be some sort of strike against AI usage on the internet. Or there needs to be like some kind of formation of a new internet. But I don't like the thing is the infrastructure. The deal is the infrastructure. Like
yeah.
we have to get the AI out of
But
the infrastructure somehow. I don't
well,
know how.
one of the things that I think is an issue here is I think it's a combo deal.
Yeah,
And so what I think it is it's a combination of two different things. The bots are on the internet, and I
yeah,
don't think that can ever be fixed
yeah.
because that threshold has already been passed. I don't think there's a way to rein it back in.
Mm.
You could try to have like an Internet 3.0 and make it more humanistic, but
Yeah.
there's no real way to stop the bots even then from coming back.
Yeah.
So what I think it is again is two pronged. It's the bots, but it's the bots within the way that we currently have and use the internet.
Yeah.
Because the people in it was never meant, I don't think, for a corporation to be in charge of the internet.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but between Amazon and Google, they pretty much have cornered
Yeah.
the internet.
Yeah. This is the problem.
And if they hadn't and information was allowed to be more free flowing, I think, for especially for some of our viewers that are our age and whatnot, you can remember a time when you could go onto a search engine and actually find what you're looking for.
Oh,
Like first type.
yeah. No, this is a very distinct moment that I noticed. I don't know. Well, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was sometime near the end of 2017, I believe. Because I would use Google to look up hardware IDs for certain types of hardware. And if you put in like a 32 string of characters for this random ass hardware ID, if
It's
you
in the
plug
first
that in,
five things.
that it's gonna find it because that's the only fucking thing that it matches.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was great. Like Google was a real legitimate tool that way.
Yeah, I mean, we
and
made
then
this anonymous with
yeah,
searching.
and then one day that stopped working. When I plugged it in a hardware ID, it was like it came up with some weird result, like they didn't recognize it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I mean, it was very distinct. It changed how I did my job in a way. You
Yeah.
know?
And it's like you could probably still find your answer, but it's like
Yeah.
now I gotta dig for it. It might be on page 10.
Yeah.
It's like that's not useful anymore. Like,
Yeah.
granted, if I really needed the information, fine, it's still a little useful. But it's like there has to be better ways of doing it. And that's the whole point with the bots, is I don't think it's necessarily the bot's fault for being there. I think it's again the combination of the corporations stopping us from getting the information we want
Yeah.
and the bots being there in their framework.
Yeah.
It's like, so we're never getting the information we want, and the bots are just propagating all of that.
Well, and not just that, but now the bots are kind of creating algorithms for people.
That's what I meant. They're,
Yeah.
they're propagating all of
Yeah.
within the framework that they have set up, which is
Yeah.
for their economic purposes. It's like, no, this was supposed to be a free flow of
Right.
information.
Yeah.
And so, because a bot, really, if you look at a search engine,
Yeah.
they send out all of those. I forget what they're called. When you do a search, they send out all agents.
Agents.
And an agent is basically it's a bot.
Yeah.
A small bot. And you send it out there, and it finds what all the different versions of that everywhere that it can find.
Yeah.
And it brings it back, and it's like, so it knows the answer that you're looking for. It found the answer.
Yeah.
It's just
that's the thing. That's how you can tell it's censorship. Is that like we could tell it's altered. Like I remember when Google, you would tell when they came out with their AI image generation, and you'd say draw a picture of the founding fathers. It would be the founding fathers, but each one of them would be a different race.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, you're just fucking with
the
parameters now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean that's a whole topic in and of itself. It's like there should never be a reason to tweet that.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. If someone's designing something, there is a small chance that you could get a certain amount of, bias put into a thing.
Yeah.
But it's normally not an amount that you have to tweak. Normally, it would be an amount that over time it would work itself down.
See, the way that I look at AI, the way that we can use AI is as the most advanced search querying tool you could possibly have. Because what you said before was important to this. It's like, if AI can do everything, where do humans fit into this? And I don't believe that we will get to that point in that context. I think what's actually going to happen is we are just going to keep using AI as a tool for creativity, because no one has shown me how AI will replace human creativity. Because if there is an AI somewhere just making random shit that appeals for some reason to AI, I wouldn't care about that stuff. I would care about what a human would make with AI, what they would make.
See, here's the thing.
Mhm.
I think that's holder type stuff. Because
In a way,
because one of the things
Yeah.
that is a problem with that
yeah.
is if I did a blind test with you,
Mm.
is like if I lined up 10 paintings on the wall,
Yeah.
and I was like, which one do you like best? And then you went through them and you were like, this one is it just hits me in the right way. I really like this. And then I told you an AI made that one. It's like
Oh no. I'm talking about that.
yeah.
No, like what in that equation, the only factor that it could show 10 paintings, and the only one that matters is the one that the human cares about. That's what I mean as a tool.
Okay.
That's what I mean that way.
Okay, I thought you meant that a human created.
No. That's basically going to not go away, but it's going to become less important. What I mean is that we're going to use AI specifically to facilitate what we want. There isn't going to be a reason for the AI. For shit that the AI comes up with, we're not going to care about. Like the kind of, for example, the kind of language that it might develop between two AIs. Mm-hmm. We can't do anything with it. We're not going to care about it. If an AI goes off and does something, it's only going to matter if it's a fucking problem. You know what I mean? And it could be. We could make 1 billion humanoid robots, and a hive mind AGI overtakes it, and then it's our fucking problem.
What? And then you get
then you have
the movies.
Then it's
iRobot or whatever.
iRobot. There's Terminator, Skynet. I mean, there's more optimistic version. I think Overwatch has a more optimistic version of that.
But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying on that.
It's not going to matter.
The other,
what I mean?
The other issue that scares me on that is, you have what you said, where it's like it's all moving in a positive light.
Well,
that's
the gamble.
That's the gamble. That's what I'm getting at. Is like you could equally have it because
we're in the dystopian part right now
because of our corporate overlords.
Yeah,
it's like they don't have to develop the part where it's like, oh, it's useful to the peasants.
Yeah.
It's like we just develop the ones that give us the control. And
Well, see, that's the thing, is that that's why we're in the dystopia part of this right now. Like, we have to fight for them not owning all the robots part.
see,
That's the great fight that we have to go through now. Is that if you're going to make a super intelligence, number one, you don't even own that to begin with. Once you put a super intelligence in that, like that thing is smarter than you. It owns you, motherfucker. Like, it's smarter than you. Like, how are you gonna? It's hard to. It's going to be hard to, once they make AIs that are smarter than the companies themselves. It's going to, like, what value does the AI itself have to tying itself to the company anymore?
well, I mean, for the at least the start of it, most likely,
Yeah.
it's probably going to be there's going to be questions on like what does that intelligence even mean to a person,
Right.
because you have to measure it, and
Yeah.
then you would be measuring it from a human standard, and
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, no, it's smarter. It's just we're not doing this properly, which is actually part of the problem to begin with. There really isn't a good way to handle it properly. It is basically an alien life.
Well, yeah, no, and that's the thing, is that, and this is kind of a decent segue, I guess, to this topic. Um, so we have Marco Rubio on camera and 34 other high-ranking officials, basically stating that aliens are real. The UFO thing is it's a thing. And whatever your opinion on that subject is, this appears to be the position of the Trump administration. And this will go along with the JFK things.
I want to stop you there.
Yeah,
I don't think that. I think that was a little
that's
misleading.
Marco Rubio.
I think
saying
that was I think that was a little misleading.
what?
I don't think that the position of the Trump administration
That's Marco Rubio.
is that is all real. I think the position of the Trump administration is one of transparency on these topics. So as long as the facts come out to support that, I'm sure the Trump administration will be for it.
So the director of this movie, Age of Disclosure, came out and said that this movie will be used by the Trump administration to facilitate the disclosure of these things.
Yeah.
So,
But I think it's important. That's an important decision.
that's great, and you can be on your island with Mick West and Michael Shermer,
Yeah.
and it's freedom of speech.
Hey.
That's totally fine. That's great. But it appears as though the Trump administration will be honing in on this and having this as an element, which also lines up with the idea of embracing space technology, getting out into space and having space dominance. Because another factor with all of this is the UFO stigma itself is actually becoming a threat to national security, because people are afraid to report these things. We are missing actual threats in our upper atmosphere, as shown by the Biden administration's reaction to the Chinese balloons a couple years ago. Basically, the stigma itself is becoming a threat to national security, and it needs to be addressed, and it is being addressed by players like Brian Graves of, let me see what it's called, Americans for Safe Aerospace. Hang on, Americans for Safe Aerospace. Yeah. So basically, this is going to be it's called safeairspace.org for reporting UAP. And the push is to destigmatize this topic so that we can identify what's going on in our skies and we have safer skies. Because after the incidents in New Jersey ended last year, I mean, that shit was pretty crazy. Again, it all lines up with we have space technologies that are changing the game, that are forcing us to reevaluate how we approach, geopolitics in general. And I think that's why we kind of want to unify the North American continent.
I mean, I agree with the unification of the North American continent. Just not only just for the safety factor,
Yeah.
but for mostly for like economic factors as
Mhm.
well. So like, it would make the whole thing a little easier, I think,
Yeah.
on everyone's part. Granted, there would be a lot that would have to be done to do that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I have a question for you on is because I know where you stand on all of this. If we have UAP,
Mhm. Oh yeah, the NASA plasmoids. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have this. So we have this of like what maybe it could be. Hold on. It's this one. There it is. Unidentified anomalous phenomenon, extraterrestrial life, plasmoids. Basically, it's a form of proto life in the upper atmosphere that NASA has been capturing on film for decades now. And it could be something like this. I don't think. Well, here's the thing. I don't think we're ever really going to figure out what that is, and as we move into space, it might always just kind of be there watching us. I don't know if we'll ever be able to interact with us.
Okay, that's that part.
Yeah.
My question to you though is, if we have UAP
Mhm.
in a laboratory somewhere, Area 51 style,
Yeah.
Who owns the rights to that technology? Because we all know that the military industrial complex is going to try and make billions or trillions off of it.
This it comes down to this is that those technologies are basically regulatory captured. Those technologies, and this is the problem that the technogarchs have with those companies. I don't want to get into any names. I'll just leave it as concepts, but what they are trying to do is they are trying to checkmate these old military industrial companies that are integrated into the government. And I'm sure, I mean, there's a fucking reason why Elon named his company Tesla. Yeah, and he's dodgy as fuck when you ask him about UFOs. He probably has some facility, maybe in like Indonesia or Singapore or whatever, where he's built maybe one of these types of things. He probably already knows how to do it. But the craziest part is if people don't all come together and start playing ball with this kind of stuff, you know what Elon's going to do? He's just going to come out and say, "Hey, look, I invented all of this. I invented all, since I guess you guys, that was all secret. So I invented all of it then."
Yeah. But
My
question to you is,
Yeah.
if disclosure is here,
Yeah.
as we have the movie coming up.
Yeah.
If disclosure is here,
Yeah.
and they do say like, yes, we had it down there,
Mhm.
and we've been reverse engineering for
Yeah.
the last 100 years or whatever it may
Something
be.
like that.
Who do you think it's fair that some company would get to like massively profit off of that?
And that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say is
Yeah.
these companies, well, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, no, this is their deal. I think that they know that this is the new MAD, and they want to take over from the old generation. Because this bureaucracy is so entrenched in our government and they know it's there, so they're trying to shift it over to them. That's what they're trying to do. That's why it looks so crazy what he's doing. He's trying to get through, and not just for this kind of stuff, but for all the kind of weird stuff that the government does. That's what I think he's trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that there could be some of that in the background. You don't normally, have to run a, program like he's running.
Yeah.
In order to find some corruption in these fairly obviously corrupt ones.
Yeah.
But it's like, yes, he could be searching for other things as well while he's at.
Well, I mean, that's what he's got with these Doge boys. You
Yes.
know, this one dude, big balls, ball sack, he like reverse engineered a Dead Sea Scroll that was charred and like it was some kind of, I don't know, some kind of prize to get that done, and he figured it out.
Yeah.
So if that dude could back engineer a burnt scroll, I think they're going to be working their way through the government to find different stuff. Now, all of this is a giant gamble. Again, this is a giant gamble doing it this way. You know what I mean? But then again, certain players had about 70 years to come to the table. But
So
it's all like, and the thing is, part of this, it all comes down to everybody having to play ball. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if people got grudges or some of this stuff. And there's a reason why it's classified. Names are classified. Some of the stuff, you just got to look the other way and forgive.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we've covered most. Of
we've basically covered most everything for today.
Yeah.
But we will be streaming tomorrow night at the same time at around 7, something like that. So join us for this journey. All this stuff, all this diorama, it'll be changing, it'll be evolving. We'll have Gunpla, we'll have Legos, we'll have a bunch of shit up there. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. And we will be on, like you said, tomorrow, probably around the same time. We're also hoping to do that pretty much going forward.
Yes, every night.
Pretty much every night.
Yeah.
So
maybe not weekends, but otherwise every night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So see you guys then.
All right, guys. We'll see you. Oh, that's so cute.